Welcome to Unknown Kazakhstan. My name is Daniil Glumov and I am a discovery hunter. Climbing up to the very top in order to plunge into the very bottom. Reeling up hundreds of kilometers in order to wind off hundreds of years. The Unknown KZ crew already has a trace of sensational discoveries behind it, shared by self-sacrificing scientists and desperate travelers. We've experienced the effect of radiation on ourselves. We have played the roles of diggers and ornithologists. We've tasted the sweet aroma of archaeological research. But we've never experienced anything like we faced with while filming this episode. At the height of the velvet season, I got to Bayanaul, the place that rightly became the center of tourism of the Republican and even of the international scale. The water here heals, the air inspires, and the rocks, according to the legends, endow the person with incredible abilities. A little note: the action of fantastic forces lasts exactly until the next vacation. Therefore, every guest who comes here tries to get the most out of it. And judging by the crowds of people on the beaches of local lakes, no one has left Bayanaul staying dry. We will depart from the well-known forms of tourism and see how else we can occupy ourselves. The excavations of the tombs of Kempetas and tumulus with ridges. I've already told about this kind of tourism which attracts more and more guests to the region. Several times a day, these archaeological sites near the lake of Toray host minibuses full of curious people. In fact, every museumified archaeological site is kind of a time machine. When getting to the ancient burial mound or to the ruins of a temple, this way or another a person begins to imagine himself in this context. Curiosity awakens inside and the person feels like an explorer, a pioneer. It's impossible to fight the desire to contact and touch the mystery. I recalled archaeological tourism because of its similarity to another very spectacular event regularly occurring in these places. Having been in the Bronze Age on the tombs of Kempetas, after getting acquainted with the early iron barrow, you seem to open the portal in time. The next stop will amaze you. And how do you like moving a few hundred years ahead in the times of knights and tournaments, blazing hearts and hot heads? A swimming suit, a lifesaver and sunscreen are not the things which you can see here. At the tilt yard, even if it is an improvised one, more heavy wardrobe is welcomed. This particular armor was not made especially for me, so there are some inconveniences plus extra weight. How much are you carrying on yourself now? About 25 kilograms. As you have understood, we're on the center of historical reconstruction. Do not try to find similarities and connections with specific battles from the past. Participants from Bishkek, Pavlodar, Astana and Almaty gathered here for a berhut. Generally, this sport of historical medieval battles was born in the CIS. And right in the CIS, the World Championship, which is called the Battle of Nations, began. This caused a sharp surge of interest in this sport. This actually founded this World Championship. We were engaged in role-playing games of live action on Tolkien and fantasy for a long time. And then we switched to history, to historical fencing. And when this sport appeared, this has become a further development, and we naturally joined this movement. Do you know each other in your sport? How often do such international competitions take place? Usually they are organized quite often. In January there was the Apples on the Snow tournament in Almaty. In the autumn we had the Autumn in the Middle Ages fest in Bishkek. In March there was supposed to be the Blade of the Steppe in Astana. And now Pavlodar hosts us. Medieval military-style fashionistas, which are actually all the people here, would have noticed a certain dissonance in the outfit of the athletes. Suits that we have are regulated, but they are quite diverse because everyone chooses a certain historical era and region. Mainly it is the Middle Ages. It can be a steppe armor or European or Russian armor. And most importantly, the judges should ensure that it protects the participant. In general, armor should not be changed for more than 50 years. I mean the armor from one epoch, from one historical period of time. The mix of uniforms and items of different cultures is allowed, even though it looks like the football players exchange t-shirts after the final whistle. We reconstruct Russia, Europe and Asia, the Golden Horde. Here I'm partially wearing Hattanga Degel, which in Mongolian means an iron robe. Here is my helmet with a mask. Is it Mongolian? It is. This is the European leg armor, but I usually wear it under my pants to hide them. However, historians are not surprised with such a combination. Armor borrowing between the armies took place from time immemorial. As to making weapons and armor, people around the world always chose the best for killing and protection. In the Middle Ages, everything happened like this. The strongest was the influence, of course, from the east. I mean, from the territory of Central Asia and China, the area that had been inhabited by nomadic peoples since the ancient times. Beginning with the era of the Scythians, Saxons, Sarmatians and Huns, and further up to the Turkic time. In those days, as it is now, weapons were quickly spread and arms traditions were interconnected. How do you dive in history? How much needs to be studied? If a person likes European, Russian or Asian armor, he starts digging this way. People are looking for sources for armor. They get acquainted at festivals. Someone exchanges their experience. A lot can be seen live. Gloves especially, or other elements of protection, and you begin to understand what is better, what's worse. An average fighter makes his armor on his own. If not taking into account the narrowly specialized types of defense, such as helmets or leg armor, skills are needed here. As to border armor, this is the plate. More experienced guys can give you an advice. I personally believe that only few things were found in history, because for thousands of years people have invented such things which we cannot even imagine. But there are engravings, findings upon which some things are finished in order to make everything safer and more convenient. Describe your equipment, please, your weapons. What are you fighting with? This is the suit of armor of the second half of the 14th century from Western Europe. I chose it because it is the most simple and protective equipment. This is the Asian armor from Central Asia. Approximately in the 14th century, people were fighting in such armor here. What does it consist of? Plain black steel, although there are exceptions. Different types of red-hot steel. By the way, the eastern regions of Kazakhstan, which this time hosts this nighty tournament, since ancient times is famous for its gunsmiths. The centers of metalworking are eastern and central Kazakhstan, where the corresponding deposits of iron ore are located. From the territory of eastern Kazakhstan and Altai, in this region metallurgy production has traditionally been developed. And it is interesting that it is from there the most massive findings of blade weapons are coming. These are broadswords and sabers. The earliest samples come from this region. Most likely was made in the territory controlled by Kimaks, Kimak Khanate, Kyrgyz Khanate, because this tradition came precisely from that region and gradually spread throughout the territory of Kazakhstan. The events of the tournaments are nearing completion. People are gathering around the tilt yard. It does not do without palace intrigues. Astana or Pavlodar have a light alloy of metal, or they fight in the titanium armor. It weighs 8 kilograms, against our 25 and more. Passions are rising. See a person that is undergoing emergency treatment. No, it's just very hot and people are wearing gambesons, protective equipment. And it is also necessary to have a rest a little. In fact, the scalding sun is very interfering. What a person should be prepared for? What weapons are used in your battles? It depends on the nomination. For example, now in the shield and sword battle, ordinary light swords for fencing and shields will be used. Under this nomination, all ambitions are stated visor to visor. What are your impressions? After all, you are an organizer. What emotions do you have? There are a lot of fighters. Actually, it is the participants who make the event. There are a lot of participants. There are many interesting fighters. A lot of good fighters came with whom it was interesting to fight. The participants of the event made it cool. Did you expect so many participants? We didn't expect that many participants in the tournament. It's very cool that there are so many of them, because even in Russia there are 15 people in the tournament and we had 20. And it is here at the regional event. And of course the fact that it is a very cool and picturesque place played a huge role. And next year we will do another event here. Is there a chance to host a tournament where all the flags will be here? In Kazakhstan? Yes. Yes, we have a tournament that officially enters the world network. It's the Blade of the Steppe. Accordingly, about 6 countries participate there, the CIS countries mainly. If there are noble occupations in the world in which you can get abrasions and at the same time remain contented, then such tournaments are among them. This is a matter worthy of true knights of fortune. First of all, it is a sport, but more interesting as it involves a lot of background and interesting historical things. Our guys don't lie to each other. Everything is very honest. People are always friendly. We, it seems, just love to beat each other up. It's true, and sometimes people even faint. But at the same time, everybody laughs, has fun, and does all this with a smile. It's a community where there is no meanness. Everything is simpler and more humane. This is probably what keeps all of us in the game. Do you want a full stand for the tournament? I do, but you see, this will require a more powerful advertising campaign, and we plan to create such a cool tilt yard made of wood so that it looks more integrated. The level of organization corresponds to what we see around the world. Tournament rules, compliance, accommodation of fighters, city planning. I can even say we are organized better. We had some great wins during the last 3 years. The CIS guys know about us and perceive us as their closest neighbors. Besides that, we publish a lot of things online. We get the likes and views. People are becoming more interested and say, wow, you put up tents and you have full stands. The atmosphere beats. Inside the audience, gathered at the stadium, bewilderment crossed the swords with ecstasy. The acute desire to connect to the battle inflicts crushing blows against the shield of the instinct of self-preservation. We will definitely develop everything, because the opportunity to hold such an event here is genuinely cool. Bayanol was created for the historical festivals. You just come and do, and everything is fine, because everything you need is already here. And really, what else is needed? It's like in the Colosseum. There is a sight, blood, you've even been injured today. Yes, unfortunately, it was my mistake as a fighter that I did not foresee that move. I ripped off a huge blister. It was very unpleasant, but it happens. This is the reality of our sport. Some of the listed types of tourism for someone may seem difficult or inaccessible. For others, will be unusual. They are somewhat different from the typical passive types of holiday we are familiar with. But nevertheless, open up for new impressions. Expand the borders and immerse yourself in these beautiful worlds that Kazakhstan gives us.